Okay, so you're prepping for a regional sales director interview. And let's be real, that's a big deal.
It
It is.
is.
And you don't just want to be prepared, you want to like really impress.
Right.
So that's where this deep dive comes in. We're going way beyond just your typical tips and tricks by really dissecting this article from Himalayas.
Mhm.
They've got these sample interview questions and answers for 7 different sales leadership roles.
Yeah, what's so cool about this article is that it's not just generic advice,
Right.
it's actual examples from
Yeah,
people who aced these interviews for
exactly.
these kinds of positions.
Yes, and that's what we're here to break down,
Hmm.
right? Recurring themes, expert level responses, and yeah, even what not to say.
Oh, it's
By the end of this, you'll be walking into that interview feeling like, okay, I've got this.
like having a secret weapon.
I love that. So, first things first, as we were kind of digging through all these different roles, sales manager all the way up to chief sales
Mhm.
officer, did you notice any big patterns or anything that like jumped out at you?
Definitely. One of the things that really stood out was strategic thinking, and this was across all levels.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So it's not enough to just be good at selling, right?
Yeah.
You have to be able to think critically, analyze situations, and come up with plans to reach goals.
Okay, so strategic thinking, I feel like it's almost like a buzzword sometimes.
Totally.
So I'm curious, what did that actually look like in the article?
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, a great example is the Siemens case study.
Okay.
They found this gap in how they were approaching small and medium enterprises, SMEs.
Okay.
And instead of using the same strategy for everyone, they took a more strategic approach.
Okay, so what did they actually do?
Well, they developed this marketing and sales campaign, and it was super targeted,
Yeah.
specifically for SMEs,
Got it.
recognizing, that they had unique needs and challenges. They
Right.
even trained their whole team on something called consultative selling.
Okay, so for anyone listening who maybe isn't familiar with that term, consultative selling is kind of like being more of an advisor than a traditional salesperson.
Exactly.
You're focused on those long-term relationships.
Yeah,
You want to solve problems for people,
absolutely.
not just make a quick sale.
Yeah, and it really worked.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the article said they saw a 40% increase in their SME clients in just 1 year.
Wow, that's huge.
Huge revenue boost.
Yeah. Okay. So the takeaway here is that it's not enough to just talk about strategic thinking, in this vague way.
Right.
You have to be able to point to times where you've actually done it.
Yeah,
And even better, if you can, like, give those tangible results that came out of it.
exactly. And, this actually leads us to another key theme,
Oh, okay.
the STAR method.
The STAR method. Everyone talks about this, but I'm always curious to hear
Mm.
why is it so important, especially in the context of this article.
Well, it's all about telling a good story
Okay.
while highlighting your skills.
Okay.
STAR. Situation, task, action, result.
Yep.
It's a way to frame your answers to make a real impact.
So not just saying, I increase sales.
Nope. It's about painting a picture, giving context,
Yeah.
explaining how you think and how your actions actually led to results.
I like that. So give me an example.
Okay, so the Salesforce example.
Mm-hmm.
The candidate was asked about turning around a failing sales team. And they didn't just say, oh, I improved sales. They took the interviewer through the whole journey.
Okay, so give us that journey.
So first, the situation. The team was missing targets like crazy for 6 months straight.
Oof. Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah. And then the action, one-on-one coaching, training programs, even weekly meetings to boost morale.
Wow, it's just like giving the interviewer that behind the scenes look.
Exactly. And then, of course, the result, sales exceeded targets by 30%.
Wow, that's awesome.
Powerful stuff.
Okay, so to everyone listening, if you're getting ready for this interview, practice using the STAR method. Think of specific situations where maybe you faced a challenge. Think about what steps you took and then what happened because of those steps.
Yes, and don't be afraid to get specific. The more detailed, the better.
I love that. Now, I notice a lot of the answers in the article went a step further.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't just describe their actions, they explained the why.
The why.
It's like they were giving the interviewer a glimpse into how they think.
That's a great point. And that's key for showing strategic thinking.
Okay.
It's not enough to just say what you did. You got to explain why.
Right. So it's not just what you did, it's why you did it.
Exactly.
Give me an example.
Okay, the bimbo example, they were asked about handling objections from a client.
Okay, classic interview question.
Right. Now, instead of saying, oh, I just took care of their concerns, they talked about empathy,
Okay.
understanding the client's budget,
Yeah.
and then they actually tailored a solution to fit their needs,
Which was?
a trial period.
Ah, smart.
Right. So it's about showing you're thinking ahead,
Yeah.
being proactive.
It shows you're really invested in finding a solution that works for everyone.
Exactly. That kind of thoughtfulness, it really makes you stand out.
Okay, I'm feeling more prepared already.
Right.
Anything else that really stood out to you?
You know what really impressed me? How often they use numbers
Oh, yeah.
to back up their claims. It's one thing to say, I increased sales, but it's way more powerful to say, I increased sales by 25%.
Yeah, I struggle with that. I know a lot of people do, quantifying their accomplishments.
It can be tough.
So what advice would you give based on what you saw in the article?
Have your numbers ready.
Okay.
Think about your wins and how you can measure them.
Okay.
Did you boost revenue, improve customer retention, cut costs?
It's about having that data.
Yes. It shows you understand the business side, which is so important for this role.
Makes sense.
And it shows you're making decisions based on evidence, not just gut feeling.
Which is what every company wants, right?
Uh.
Data-driven decisions.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about the things to do to really nail this interview. But I think it's just as important to talk about what not to do.
The red flags?
Yes, those red flags. The article had some good examples of what to avoid, which some of them might seem obvious,
Oh, yeah.
but they're easy to slip up on.
Totally.
Like, don't blame others.
It's such a basic mistake, but you see it all the time.
Really?
Yeah. And it just shows a lack of accountability, and no one wants that.
Right. Even if things went wrong because of something outside your control, you always want to focus on what you did to handle the situation, not who to blame.
For sure. And another one, don't be vague.
Ooh, good one.
I worked hard, or I did my best. That doesn't cut it.
No, it's got to be specific.
You got to be specific. What did you do and what was the outcome?
Details matter.
They do.
I'm also thinking about ownership, like really owning your experiences, good and bad.
Absolutely. Don't shy away from talking about challenges or setbacks. It's okay if things didn't go perfectly,
Right.
as long as you can show what you learned from it.
It's all about learning and growing, right?
Exactly. And that shows self-awareness, which is huge for any leader.
So dodging these pitfalls, that really sets you apart.
It does. It shows maturity, professionalism,
Yeah.
that you get it.
Okay, so we've covered a lot: strategic thinking, the STAR method.
Quantifying results, those red flags.
Yes, yes. But before we wrap up this first part, there's one more thing we're going to talk about: soft skills and leadership qualities.
Ah, yes. This is where things get interesting. Because it's about those qualities that make you stand out as a person.
It's like the human element.
Exactly.
And the article, technical skills, those are important.
Of course.
But it really highlighted all these interpersonal aspects as well.
Yeah, like empathy when you're negotiating, building team morale, being able to collaborate across different departments.
It's about being more than just a salesperson, right?
Totally. It's about being a leader.
Okay, so give me an example.
All right, so there's the Siemens-Italy negotiation.
Okay.
The candidate talked about how empathy was key to closing that deal.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they took the time to understand the client's perspective, built a connection.
It's about building trust.
Exactly.
Oh.
Not just trying to win at all costs.
I like that. What else?
Okay, then there was the example of this underperforming team member at Accenture.
Okay, yeah.
Now, instead of just reprimanding them, they took a different approach.
Which was?
Support, coaching, guidance.
It's about seeing potential. Right.
Exactly.
Helping people grow.
It's about creating a positive environment where people feel valued and can do their best work.
It's inspiring.
It is. And interviewers, they love to hear those kinds of stories.
Okay, so much good stuff here. As we wrap up part one, what are the main things our listeners should remember about soft skills and leadership?
Okay, so yes, technical skills are important, but they're not the only thing.
Right.
You have to show that you can build relationships, that you can motivate people,
Yeah.
and create a positive work environment.
So it's about being well-rounded.
Exactly. And think about your own experiences. How do they show these qualities? Have you ever handled a tough negotiation or led a team through a rough patch? Maybe you mentored someone who was struggling.
Those are the stories that make your leadership skills come alive.
That's a good place to pause. But we've only just scratched the surface.
I know, right? So much good stuff here. But there's so much more, so make sure you come back for part 2 of this deep dive, where we'll really unpack even more valuable insights from these interview questions and answers. Okay, so we're back, ready to go even deeper on these regional sales director interview insights. When we were talking about soft skills, one example from the Himalayas article really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah? Which one?
The Alibaba one.
Oh, right. The candidate who talked about working with sales, marketing, and customer support.
Yes, to launch this new product.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that one.
It's so interesting how they basically created this cross-departmental task force.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just sales off doing their own thing. They were like, no, we need everyone on board.
I think that's such a key insight, especially for someone who wants to be a regional sales director,
Okay, why?
because it's not just managing your own team.
Right.
It's understanding how sales fits into the whole company.
It's like the big picture.
Exactly.
So for our listener, what's the takeaway from that Alibaba example?
It shows how important it is to break down those silos.
Ooh, I hate silos.
Right. And really foster a collaborative environment. The best sales leaders know they can't do it alone.
Makes sense.
They need those strong relationships with other departments to share insights, work towards the same goals.
And they got results, right?
Oh, yeah. They mentioned a 30% sales increase during the launch.
That's huge.
Just because they worked together.
That's the power of teamwork, baby.
Synergy.
Okay, I'm seeing how it all connects now. Let's get back to the questions.
Okay.
When we were prepping for this, were there any questions that you felt really let the candidates show off their strategic thinking and leadership?
For sure. The ones about developing sales strategies.
Oh, interesting.
Both for existing products and for entering new markets.
Because that's where you really have to prove you're not just a salesperson.
Totally.
You're a visionary.
You got to show you can analyze the market, find those opportunities, and create a plan to achieve specific goals.
And the Himalayas article gives some really good frameworks for doing that.
They do.
What were some of the examples that stood out to you?
Okay, well, there's the Siemens example.
Right, with the SMEs.
Yeah, but another great one was Huawei.
Okay, tell me about that one.
They were dealing with a ton of competition.
Huge communications, right?
Yeah, they had to think outside the box.
So what did they do?
They did their research and found this underserved market, small businesses.
Interesting.
So they shifted their entire strategy to focus on that.
So instead of competing head-to-head with the big guys,
Right.
they found their niche.
They found their lane, and they customized their solutions. They did targeted outreach. 15% market share increase within a year.
Wow, that's impressive given the competition.
Yeah.
Okay, so the takeaway here is be adaptable.
Yes.
Don't be afraid to challenge the status quo. Think outside the box.
Think outside the box. Find new ways to grow.
And don't forget the market research.
Never forget the research. The more you know, the better.
Okay, those are great examples for existing products. But what about, like, entering a new market?
Ooh, that's a whole other challenge.
Feels way more daunting.
It is, but the article, they stressed, again, research is key.
Right.
But they also talked about really understanding the nuances of that new market.
Like what?
Cultural differences, regulations, who are the competitors, it's all different.
So you can't just copy and paste what worked somewhere else.
Definitely not.
Okay. Was there an example of that in the article?
Yeah, the XYZ Ltd case study. They were trying to break into the Mexican market.
Okay.
And they knew they needed a totally different approach.
What did they do?
They really emphasized working closely with marketing.
There's that collaboration again.
Right. To develop localized messaging and campaigns.
All based on their research.
All based on the research, yeah.
So it's not like a one-time thing.
No.
You got to be constantly evaluating, adapting, right?
Based on the data, that's crucial.
And who drives that process?
The regional sales director.
Yeah.
It's all connected.
It's all coming together.
So if you're listening and prepping for this interview, make sure you can talk about how you develop and execute sales strategies, both in existing markets and new ones.
Be ready to discuss your process for research, for figuring out what customers need, and tailoring your approach.
And remember those metrics.
Right. Quantify those results.
Especially when you're talking strategy.
Okay, so walk me through that.
You have to be able to prove that your strategies are actually making a difference.
Not just talking the talk.
Right, you got to walk the walk.
What were some of the key metrics that they highlighted for regional sales directors?
The big one is sales growth, obviously. Right. But they also talked about things like customer acquisition cost, conversion rates, customer lifetime value.
Okay, I think we need to break down customer acquisition cost.
Yeah, good point. Basically, it's how much it costs to get a new customer.
Got it.
It tells you how efficient your sales and marketing are.
So lower is better?
Generally, yes. The less you spend to get each new customer, the better.
Makes sense. Was there an example of that?
Oh, yeah. The Tencent case study. They focused on reducing their customer acquisition cost through really targeted campaigns. They improved their return on investment by 20%.
So it's not just about getting the sale.
Nope.
It's about being smart about it.
It's about profitability, thinking long term.
Okay, this all leads perfectly into the next big thing for regional sales directors, managing and motivating teams.
Right, you can't do it all yourself.
Exactly. You need a great team behind you.
And that's where those leadership qualities we talked about really come in.
Yeah, you can't just be a good salesperson.
It's about inspiring others, helping them reach their potential.
And I feel like that came up a lot in the article.
Oh, definitely. Especially in those questions about dealing with underperforming team members.
Ooh, yeah, that's a tough one.
It is, but it's something every sales leader will face at some point.
Right.
And the article really stressed approaching it with empathy, focusing on solutions.
Okay, I like that approach. So were there any examples of how people did that well?
The Accenture example was a good one.
Remind me.
Instead of just like getting mad at the person who wasn't performing, they took the time to figure out what was going on.
To understand the challenges.
Yeah, and then they provided support.
It's about realizing there's always a reason, right?
There's always a reason.
Maybe they need more training. Maybe they're going through something personal.
Exactly. And this candidate, they got it. They provided extra training. They offered to mentor them.
They created this culture of, like, always getting better.
Yes. And guess what?
What?
The team member turned things around and exceeded their target.
That's amazing.
That's the power of good leadership.
It's not about finding fault. It's about helping people grow.
Helping people grow and creating a positive environment, it leads to better results for everyone.
Okay, there was another question that I thought was really interesting.
Oh, yeah. Which one?
How do you set sales targets and make sure they're aligned with the company's goals?
Yes, that's a big one.
It's not just about picking random numbers.
It's about seeing the big picture
Exactly.
and making sure your sales goals actually help the company achieve its overall strategy.
And the article really emphasized looking at market data, sales trends, but also talking to other departments.
Can't work in a silo.
No silos.
They even gave an example where they coordinated with marketing and finance to make sure everyone was on the same page.
I like that.
It shows you're thinking about the whole company, not just your own department.
Okay, this has been so helpful.
I know, right?
We've talked about so much.
Strategic thinking, quantifying your results, soft skills, collaboration.
Don't forget those red flags.
Oh yeah, those red flags. Knowing what not to do is just as important.
But we're not done yet. There's one more piece.
One more piece.
What makes those truly exceptional sales leaders stand out? What are those extra qualities? We got to unpack that next.
We do.
So join us for the final part of this deep dive where we'll uncover those secrets to really nailing that regional sales director interview. Okay, so we're back for the final part of this deep dive. And, you know, we've talked about so much already, but I'm really curious about what sets those truly amazing sales leaders apart. Like, what are those qualities that take someone from good to great?
It's interesting. It's not always something super obvious.
Okay.
It's more like how they present themselves, the stories they choose to tell, their values.
So it's not just about, like, listing accomplishment.
No, it's about how you frame those experiences.
Yeah.
What did you learn? What was your mindset?
It's like those deeper insights.
Exactly. That's where you see things like resilience, adaptability, genuine passion.
And you can't really fake that stuff.
Nope. It comes through in how you talk about your work, your team, your customers.
And I imagine that's especially important for a regional sales director.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a high-pressure role.
There's always going to be challenges, setbacks. You have to be able to bounce back.
Keep learning, keep growing.
And not just for yourself, but for your whole team.
You know, one of the questions that always comes up is the one about turning around a struggling team.
Yeah, that's a classic.
But it's how people answer it. That's what really stood out to me in the article.
Okay, what do you mean?
Well, the best answers went way beyond just the tactics. They talked about their leadership philosophy.
Oh, no.
Like, there was one candidate, they inherited this team that was missing targets like crazy.
For how long?
Like 3 quarters in a row.
Well,
And they didn't just talk about the training they implemented, they talked about empathy.
okay.
Understanding individual struggles, building that culture of continuous improvement. And they even mentioned how employee satisfaction scores went up like 20%.
That's huge.
Right. It shows they get it.
It's not just about the numbers. It's about the people.
And creating an environment where people can thrive.
Exactly.
And that makes me think about another important quality, vision.
Vision. The ability to see the big picture.
Anticipate trends, plan for the future.
That's what sets leaders apart.
And you can show you have vision even if you haven't had, like, a formal leadership title.
Totally.
It's about how you approach everything.
It's your mindset.
Like, remember the 10-cent example?
Reducing customer acquisition costs.
Yeah. It wasn't just about saving money, it was about making smart investments.
Long-term thinking.
Exactly. They were looking ahead, positioning the company for success down the line.
That's vision.
So for everyone listening who's getting ready for this interview, what's the big takeaway when it comes to these qualities?
Don't just focus on what you did. Think about how you did it. What challenges did you face? What did you learn? What values guided you?
Those are the things that make your story unique.
And those are the things interviewers will remember.
They want to see who you are as a leader.
Exactly. We've given you so much to think about.
I know, so much good stuff.
So go into that interview with confidence.
Be yourself.
Let your passion shine through.
And most importantly, believe in yourself.
We're rooting for you.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive.
Until next time.